Hey everyone, welcome back to the Manufacturing Stream podcast. I am your host, Eric Whitley, Director of Industrial Transformation at L2L. The Manufacturing Stream podcast is brought to you by L2L, the number one connected workforce platform on the market today. Hey, have you seen our new team board? L2L captures every event that happens on the factory floor, downtime, quality, safety, production, and brings it into the L2L team board to help you digitize your daily management process. Go to L2L.com, check it out. There you can sign up for a free demo. So go to L2L.com today and yeah, see what we have to offer. We're doing some really cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, I have a special guest with me today. I met Chris at the IMTS show. Chris, I think that's where we met. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then again
Yeah.
at Fab Tech and everywhere else in between.
Right. All the shows that we've been to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we got talking. They're doing some really cool stuff. So let me introduce you to Chris Brown, VP of Sales for CADDi. And CADDi, I'm going to let Chris explain what CADDi is, but they're doing some really neat stuff. We've had discussions here on this podcast over the last few weeks about AI and how AI is changing manufacturing and how AI and manufacturing is actually going to AI and how the many different ways that we're using that. We use it in L2L. And I know CADDi does some amazing stuff. So I thought it'd be fun to have Chris on the podcast and talk a little bit about what CADDi does and then kind of about manufacturing in general and what their thoughts are on that and how we're going forward. So, hey, buddy, it's good to have you. Thanks for being with us on the Manufacturing Stream podcast.
I always enjoy our conversations, Eric. It always leads to a great time. So I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah. For those of you that weren't there at the IMTS show, the one reason why I talked to Chris so much is because they had an awesome coffee machine over at the CADDi booth, and it was within walking distance. And he was nice enough to invite me to come over and get a cup of coffee. And so I may have took advantage of that invite maybe 3 or 4 times. So sorry about that, but yeah.
Well, we're manufacturers, and so we had to geek out on coffee a little bit and bring in the laser etching machine in order to laser etch our logo in the foam.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. You laser etched your logo on the foam of the coffee. That was awesome. Yeah,
It was
good.
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, start us off. Give us the 30,000 foot view. Give us an overview of the technology that CADDi uses and kind of where it fits.
Absolutely. So we're really, really strong believers in the fact that humans show up to work every single day wanting to do their absolute best. And that means that we have to provide them with the best tools as well.
Right.
And so when we think about what CADDi does and what it empowers, first we have to start thinking about what we've been doing as far as our digital footprint for the past, decade or so in the manufacturing industry, what digital transformation has been. And what we've noticed is that digital transformation really just took drawings out of a file cabinet and put them into a file foldering system on people's computers. We didn't empower them with the ability to find those documents fast. I like to say one of the things that we solve for is turning in, we prevent engineers from becoming librarians. And we also believe that the flat file of a drawing doesn't necessarily give anybody enough data in order to move through their stage gates in their processes or procure better, make better decisions faster and smarter. And so what CADDi's doing is taking those flat 2D drawings and enriching them with data from around other systems within a company. Think about when your quality defects that resulted for that part are tied back to a drawing. Think about when your procurement data is tied back to a drawing. Think about when your notes from your emails back and forth with your colleagues are tied back to those drawings. Why did the revisions happen? Who approved it? What were some of the thought processes that went into creating that drawing? We take AI takes all of those notes from all of those other systems, ties it back to those drawings, and then we make them hyper searchable. That's really what our proprietary technology is. And whether that be searching by keyword, right? And if I'm an engineer and I want to find a 6,000 gallon tank that's been pressure tested to 2,000 psi, that's been NSF rated for food safety and has certain fittings on it, we can just type natural language like you would into Google in order to comb through all of our drawings to find the results that are important to moving forward and preventing part proliferation, things along those lines. But even more importantly than that, we enable search by shape. And that's really important to people because it's really hard to describe shape. We've been trying to do this inside of PDM and PLM systems for decades now, whereby which engineers are tasked with writing descriptors and categorizing parts using words. But shapes can really only be described via shape. And so what we empower in shape search is actually engineers being able to start with a concept, a sketch on a napkin, scan that into CADDi, and it'll comb through all of that organization's drawings to find shapes that are similar. Or when an NPI engineer hands a drawing over to procurement, procurement can scan that drawing in and find all of the shapes that are similar and where did they source them from and how much did they pay and were they on time, really bringing forth a lot of this data. And so in summary, CADDi is a system of insight that feeds off of all of these systems of records that organizations that perform manufacturing tasks do, really in order to help them move through their stage gates and their processes a lot faster than they were able to before.
Wow, that's amazing technology, and I'm sure that the manufacturers are their ears perk up when you start talking about that. The one thing in there that I heard, you start adding context, data context to the drawings. So I start thinking naturally of L2L, and we capture the quality defects on the shop floor. We capture the scrap. We capture all of that stuff that happens to the parts and products on the shop floor. So what you're saying is then you could contextually take that data and put it on top of that drawing so that when the engineer goes to look for a drawing or look for a like piece or something, do a project, they can see all of that data as well, that, hey, this particular design has these quality defects attached to it. It has all that. Is that something you could do?
It is. I think that's why you and I riff so well together
Yeah.
whenever we run
Yeah.
into each other, is because you make it hyper easy for the shop floor to record this data in the system of record, right?
Yeah.
You're using all of this technology to make sure that, paper travelers don't need to be filled out perfectly and all of these other tasks that are very arduous on the shop floor. And you
Right.
report it back to that system of record. And then we take that system of record and make it hyper searchable.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that, we talk about there really isn't anything on the shop floor that we don't capture. We always say, our little saying is, if it's not in L2L, it didn't happen,
Yep.
And so then to give that data set to the engineer who then can go back and has this holistic picture of an engineering project that says, if I'm going to go, my mind immediately goes to the production line. If I'm going to go design 2.0 production line, when I go to design 2.0, I want to make sure that I have all of the information that goes into that. Real quick, one more thing, then I just realized that what that also does is that ties into the pillar of total productive maintenance for early equipment design, because now you're taking that information, dropping it in onto the drawings, and then the engineer can go make those improvements so that we can reduce downtime with production line 2.0.
Absolutely. Imagine if you are a packaging equipment manufacturer, for example, and you're working on packaging fruits for a new company. You're working on a new line that takes fruits in, peels them, slices them, washes them, packages them, palletizes them. And you're able to see when looking at the design of the hopper, for example, you're able to see a field service engineering note that was collected years ago that says that these hoppers always get jammed up when the fruit's too wet. Well, you're going to move your wash stage further back, or you're going to
Right.
include a dry stage then.
Right.
It's those types of insights that engineers absolutely love our tool for, is
Yeah.
because they can prevent those quality issues from happening, those defect issues from happening, those warranty issues from happening by very quickly and easily looking at how it's been handled in the past and learning
Right.
from those lessons and marching forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. The thought process for me is always comes back to, and this is a little bit of what I talked about in my presentation at IMTS, and have been given this presentation a couple, 2 or 3 times since, is that the one thing that we've done in manufacturing is we've gotten away from continuous improvement. And what I'm realizing, or what have realized, and this is kind of what I'm preaching here lately, is that what AI does is that it just removes waste out of the process, right? It eliminates waste, wasted time, wasted motion, back to the old days of what we always sold at manufacturing: wasted time, wasted motion, wasted scrap, wasted all of that stuff. Being able to do that with what we're doing and what you're doing just increases the turnaround time of a project, right?
Continuous improvement relies on massive quantities of data. And I
Right.
think you're right. We haven't gotten away from the ideas of continuous improvement,
Right.
but what we have gotten away from is the research that it takes in order to do continuous improvement, and always to lead with that mindset, because the data sets got so large and so siloed that it takes a research student, months, if not years, to learn how to improve. Back to my example, the hopper, to make sure that fruits don't get
Right.
jammed into it.
Right.
And AI is the only tool that I've seen in my lifetime. I've been in manufacturing for about 20 years now. It's the only thing that I've seen in my lifetime, in my career, that can comb through the massive amount of data that we've been producing for the past 100, 150, 200 years in manufacturing, to bring forth those lessons that have been learned in the past, to take the data set from hundreds of gigabytes, terabytes of data that we've produced, and serve up the one PDF that gives you the key to the puzzle of how to improve the machine going forward. And that's what I'm most excited about working in an AI organization for, is really reducing that amount of research effort that engineers and procurement people, supply chain people, continuous improvement people need to perform in their job. We didn't go to school to be librarians. We
Right.
went to school,
Right.
we went to school to improve
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
Let's improve the world. Let's stop using the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah. Have you seen, I don't know if you've seen the chart from, and I use it, from the Federal Reserve. There's a pretty, I think LNS Research put it out originally. You can go to the Federal Reserve data site and find it, but it shows, it's an amazing chart. I'll put it up here over the screen of you and I talking so everybody can see it. I actually did it a podcast or two ago, did that as well, but it shows from like 1986, like the throughput and the productivity of a manufacturing worker was going up. And then when it hit 2012, man, that thing leveled right out, and actually started to drop off since 2012. I've kind of made the argument that, and kind of back to your point, is that we started to look at, instead of looking at continuous improvement, we started to look at data for data's sake, and started collecting all of that data that you're talking about. I think what AI is doing, and what I believe it's doing, is it's allowing us to kind of turn the corner and say, okay, hang on, we've got all this data. We got to get back on the track to continuously improving. We've got to start making improvements. And to your point, using that data to point at where we need to go improve, and then deploying the tools and tactics to improve, is really, I think, what the cool thing about what we're doing right now. And I think that's in our world, I think that's what's happening right now.
I remember it's interesting that you say that 2012 timeline because I feel like it was around 2012, 2013, and I was talking to, I'm not going to name them, a very, very prevalent, very high-end CNC machine manufacturer. They make the CNC machines. And that was about the time where sensors and vision systems and all of this stuff became hyper
Yep.
prevalent inside of these
Yep.
machines. And I just remember being absolutely flabbergasted at the idea that that machine was generating over 3 terabytes of data per hour that it was running. And
Yeah.
here I was thinking to myself, how would you even be able to begin to comb and analyze and search through that data
Right.
to understand how to do the improvement, right?
Yeah.
Well, fast forward 10 years, we now finally have that tool, and that tool is AI because it
Yeah.
can look at terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes of data in the blink of a second and be
Right.
able to answer questions about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like a kid with a quarter in the Willy Wonka candy store. You just you lock right up, right? Like you don't you're like I don't know what to do with all this stuff. And I think that's what companies like L2L, companies like CADDi are learning is that the value then is not having the data and storing the data, but being able to pinpoint the data for the user to use. In our case, out on the shop floor, we want the operator to be able to ask a question. Hey, why is this light blinking? Right? You want an engineer to be able to say, hey, where have I designed this part before? And can you show me how I did that back in the past? Right?
Absolutely, 100%. All that data is like walking around the Library of Alexandria looking for one book. It's going to
Yeah,
take
right.
you 6 months to
Right.
find
One
it.
book. Look at one reference inside of one of those books, I think is
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We should all be so lucky as to walk around the Library of Alexandria someday. We hope we get there. So yeah, good. Well, tell me a little bit about kind of what's the future here. What do you see? What's going forward? How is CADDi looking at really kind of helping the next generation of workers on the shop floor? We know with inside of manufacturing that is the topic of discussion is the workforce and getting them trained up. What are you guys seeing there?
Absolutely. So here's a conundrum that we're about to go through, right? We're about to reshore a lot of work. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about that.
yeah,
That between the COVID happening, threats of port unions shutting down, and the results of the presidential election,
right.
there's absolutely going to be a massive reshoring effort in this country. At the same time, we're facing the biggest skilled labor gap that we've ever faced in
Yes.
manufacturing in this country. And what we really see happening over the course of the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years is empowering the humans to do the novel tasks,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
There's only so many brackets that you can manufacture before you should be able to rely solely on automation to manufacture a bracket. I don't think that there's any CAD CAM programmer that enjoys programming a CNC machine in order to machine out a simple bracket these days,
Right.
or tool manufacturer to design a tool to make a new bracket. And so, where we really see that going is a very quick and simple, have I seen this before? I've seen this before. This is how I did it. Tell the machine how to do it. Let it run. So that those humans that have that skill and that knowledge of how to make new novel components can focus their efforts on taking us to Mars, setting up moon bases, launching and landing rockets, and the novel things that are really important to advance society forward. And all at the same time, making it incredibly easy for new members that want to get into manufacturing to join. When we think about why that skilled labor gap exists today, it's not because, the traditional way of thinking about it is we made manufacturing not sexy in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, manufacturing's been sexy again for a long time. I was part of a STEM program when I was in high school. That
Mm-hmm.
STEM program still exists. It's still graduating kids at an incredible rate. But when they actually get into the seat at a manufacturer, they're suddenly back in 1980 watching,
Yes.
OSHA safety tapes on a
Yes.
VHS
Yes.
and combing through file folders, trying to self-learn. This is a generation that, during COVID, we locked in their homes and they self-educated themselves. They
Yep.
used Google, they used Zoom. They didn't have the opportunity to learn how to ask for help, and so they're very nervous asking for help today. They want to self-learn because they're nervous about people figuring out that they don't already know
Right.
something.
That's a great point.
And,
That's a
and so we have, by giving them access to these tools, one of the really cool side effects of this, and we see this in use case after use case after use case with hard stats to back it up, is onboarding new employees when you have CADDi, helping them learn who are the approved vendors, what are we good at and what aren't we good at, what do we win, what don't we win at, how do we cause quality issues and how do we make sure that they don't happen again. When rather than having to tap on the shoulder of a senior member who is already probably grouchy. I'm hit that age myself. I'm already grouchy with the new members, right?
I'm right with you.
but when they can instead do simple searches in the same way that they've been searching Google since their parents
Yep.
handed them an iPad as a replacement to a babysitter, it empowers them to self-educate. It empowers them to stay in the industry longer. It makes them feel like they're part of a modern machine shop. And that's really where we see this going and how we close that skilled labor gap. We reduce the redundancy of making the same thing over and over again and allowing automation to take care of that. We focus our highest skilled labor on novel components, and we offer tools that are native to people's learning processes in order to self-educate.
Yeah, you could not have hit it on the head more. I just, matter of fact, as you and I are speaking today, tomorrow morning will be the release of last week's podcast, where I interviewed my own son, and the reason why I interviewed him was because he quit manufacturing. He started off sweeping the floor and worked his way up to a production manager, went and got a good high paying job at a defense contractor and was doing really, really well in a very high position throughout his years, put himself back through school, did all that stuff, and then said, "This isn't for me," and left. And the reason why is because he just was not challenged. And the things were antiquated. He's like, it was so antiquated, in the way that we were doing things. It was just boring to me. And he went and did something else, So yeah, what you're saying is hitting right on. Yeah, definitely.
Yep, I
That's
wish that
awesome.
organization that your son was at had CADDi so that he could focus on those things that make him excited to be
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and L2L as well. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, because we do the same thing. I mean, what we want to be able to do is that, if a maintenance tech walks out to a production line and needs a drawing or needs to understand, a video of how to replace this pump, that's what we do. We want to be able to give that to that person right there at the job, so that they can actually go perform that work and not spend the time like you're talking about, not spend the time combing through manuals or combing through drawings or looking for spare parts or whatever. It's all right there. And all that is, it all boils down to it, just continuous improvement, just removal of wasted time and motion, inside the process.
I love the fact that you talked about the MRO instance there, right?
Yeah.
Because in the same vein, right, you're recording what happened, right? That it broke
Yep.
down, that somebody has to repair it. You're looking for cyclical nature of that in order to do preventative maintenance, everything else along those lines, right?
Yeah.
I want when that MRO technician goes and figures out that this is the bearing that broke, I
Yeah.
want him to snap a picture of it with his camera phone, load that picture into CADDi. CADDi will pick up on the shape. It'll go find the drawing and it'll go find out first and foremost, hey, that part's been end of life for the past year and a half. But
Right.
guess what? It was replaced with this part, and there's 7 on shelf, 15 in bin 4. Go grab
Right.
one and replace
Yeah.
it today.
Beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it sounds amazing, man. And I know you and we've talked about this. We could talk farming. We could talk, fishing if we wanted to do that. So, but we'll have to leave that. I swear I need to have another podcast it's just called like the other stuff or something like that, because it's so fun to talk with people. For those of you listening, we were talking before we actually started recording. Chris has a turkey farm in Minnesota, right? Is that what it is, Chris?
It is. It's a little hobby farm here, and
Nice.
this time of the year, it's November 20th. The only thing that I've got left out on the fields right now is a bunch of turkeys that are going to be part of people's Thanksgiving meals.
End of life is moving their way. Is that what you're saying? Well, I wish I was closer. I'd enjoy a crisp brown turkey, that's for sure. So
That'd be
good.
great.
Yeah. Hey, buddy, thanks for joining, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing or just get some insights from you?
us.caddy.com, upper right-hand corner of the screen, contact us. It'll ask you to book some time with one of our sales reps, might even be myself.
Yeah.
And or you can find me or Caddy on LinkedIn. Reach out directly as well.
Say that website one more time.
us.caddy.com.
Okay, great. Fantastic. And you can find Chris on LinkedIn as well. He and I are connected on LinkedIn. We chat back and forth every once in a while. So yeah, it's great to talk to you. Great to get to know you a little better. Looking forward to many, many more discussions. We got a lot of things in common, a lot of things to talk about. And that's what's cool about manufacturing is that everybody, it's just good people. It's good people to hang out with good people and get to know their lives and their stories. And then how they're trying to bring American manufacturing back to the pinnacle that it should be at. And we all know we can get back there. And so we just need to do that. So
I've never met a boring person in manufacturing.
yeah, that's exactly right. That's a great way to put it. That's exactly right. All right, man. Appreciate you.
I'll talk to you soon, Eric. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us again here on the Manufacturing Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Eric Whitley, Director of Industrial Transformation at L2L. Go follow us at L2L.com. Go follow the podcast and like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. So thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you later.